Welcome back to Singapore Tonight. Singapore is working on new laws against domestic violence and extending protection for persons in close, non-familial relationships. Now, the move comes as an inaugural report by the Social and Family Development Ministry showed a rise in child and spousal abuse cases since 2021. Cases reported to the ministry are classified into two tiers. Those in Tier 1 have lower safety or risk concerns. Now, this could include verbal abuse that doesn't escalate into physical violence or severe emotional abuse. Such cases are handled by community agencies. Tier 2 cases require intervention by the authorities. The victim's safety is a concern and they may be moved away from the family. Now, these cases could see severe injuries such as burns or fractures. The number of low-risk child abuse cases rose in 2023, and authorities say this is in part due to greater awareness and training to identify early signs of abuse. Children aged 7 to 12 years old made up the largest group of these cases. Higher-risk cases saw a slight drop since 2021. Preschool children formed the largest group, with over 802 such cases in 2023 alone, mainly from physical abuse. Now, the ministry says some involved excessive corporal punishment.
We recognize the role that parents have when it comes to disciplining their children, but there is a line to be drawn when that discipline becomes overly harsh and excessive. I think very importantly, any form of discipline has to be proportionate to the behavior of the child. So excessive discipline that causes harm to the child is not something that we condone.
The number of new spousal abuse cases grew over the past 3 years, from around 1,600 cases in 2021 to more than 2,000. Now, authorities say this is in part due to more public education on domestic violence, as well as enhanced laws against family violence in the Women's Charter. Elder abuse or any actions that endanger the safety of seniors has seen an upward trend in lower risk cases. However, more severe cases fell by around 50%. Now, some victims of domestic violence are afraid to seek help, while others don't know where to get it. CNA speaks to former victims and the community that supports them.
The day happened is I go out with my friend. So when I come back, he not happy. I went back in my downstairs. So he hit my face, hurt my face and nose.
What began as her ex-boyfriend checking her phone quickly escalated to a series of violence over 2 years. It left this woman, who only wants to be known as Jane, with a fractured nose and a bloodied eye that could have left her blind.
I'm very scared every day. I just scared that things happen again. It's very hurtful and every day I'm stressful and very scared.
Things became better when a friend referred her to PAVE, a centre that supports victims, abusers and their family. They help victims file personal protection orders and offer counselling and group therapy sessions.
Violence is a very complex issue, and that it's not only the responsibility of like PAVE or MSF, for instance, to deal with this problem. It's a community effort to help our families. So definitely, the people on the ground are the ears and the eyes and the ears who can provide the help. I think sometimes it's just asking someone, are you okay? Is everything okay? And knowing some of the resources that are available.
Working alongside these centres are DVET officers, a 24/7 emergency response team that tackles high-risk domestic violence cases.
When the police responds on site to a DV incident, they will assess whether there are any immediate safety issues warranting DVET's intervention. If so, DVET officers will engage the family members involved in the incident on an immediate safety plan. This plan addresses the safety risk and the likelihood of violence reoccurring.
PAVE says many couples of domestic violence often still want to keep their marriages. Beyond working on the violence, it says the family must process the hurt they've been through. This man started abusing his wife 2 months into their marriage. He was reluctant to seek help until his parents stepped in. He eventually went for counselling.
One would be like talking about the certain grievances that I might have towards my wife, or providing some memories from many years ago that maybe were not addressed when I was a child, let's say. And all these things provided different perspectives to help me understand how I feel or how I react to certain things.
At the start of this whole violence thing, I always thought that it's my fault. So I think the counselor really helped me have a different perspective, that I shouldn't blame myself for what's happening.
She says while the journey towards a healthy marriage may sometimes be 2 steps forward and 1 step back, what matters most is a family moving forward.
And for more, we're now joined by Tabitha Ong, Director of the Adult Protective Service at the Social and Family Development Ministry. Ms. Ong, thanks for joining us this evening. First of all, how concerned are you about the rise in child and spousal abuse cases, and what does all of this mean for Singapore?
Right. So based on the trend report, we know that from 2021 to 2023, there's a decline in the Tier 2 cases, and those are the cases that are more severe with high safety concern that requires statutory intervention by the ministry. We also saw that there is a increase in the Tier 1 cases, and those are the cases that's overseen by the community agency, with basically those are the cases whereby there are lower to moderate safety concern and risk. So actually this is pretty encouraging because it signals to us that there's an increased public awareness in this in domestic violence, and people are stepping forward to seek help early, and the professionals are responding, and that really suggests the success of early intervention and the prevention of the abuse and the violence being further escalated.
When it comes to domestic violence, it often goes unreported or underreported, Ms. Ong. Is there a particular group that are less likely to come forward to seek help?
Right. So in general, survivors find it hard to report because the person who caused harm to them are often like their family members, their loved ones. So many of them will be hesitant or have reservations in reporting because they are worried about the consequences that is, that's going to be on their loved ones or family members. Or sometimes they may have believe that when they report, the families will be kind of like broken up. Yeah. So this may be particularly true for the elderly group. Hence, MSF would like to really, we are working very hard to raise the awareness on elder abuse and neglect. And such efforts are actually targeted on the elderly themselves in helping them to understand what's abuse, as also the people around them like neighbors, volunteers, grassroots leaders, and in their social network in that sense. So to help people to understand what's abuse, what's neglect, especially in the elderly group.
And it's also understanding the boundaries here as well. The primary type of abuse towards children is physical, but what about the psychological abuse? How do we quantify something like that? And would that also mean that case numbers are actually much higher than reported?
Right. So emotional and psychological abuse are usually harder to attack because they are less visible compared to physical abuse. And oftentimes they coexist with other forms of abuse, which means that for a survivor or a child who have gone through physical abuse, basically there could be emotional and psychological abuse. So it's less visible, it's harder to attack, resulting in maybe under reporting or detection pertaining to that. But the harm done is no less significant in that sense. So this is definitely an area that we also have to look out, whether is it in a form of it coexisting with other types of abuse, as well as like whether is it on its own. Yeah.
Earlier, you were talking about some of the initiatives that have been put in place by the ministry to help these people. But on the abusers front, Ms. Ong, are there ways to stop the cycle of abuse from the source?
Oh, definitely. We will have to go to the source, and that's the person who caused harm. And I think a lot of times it is about to reach out to them, as well as whether how receptive they are in coming forward to seek help, or when the professional systems intervene, how receptive they are to seek help. I think the rehabilitation through counseling, through challenging of their beliefs is very, very critical, because if we need to continue to work hard on that front, so as to stop the abuse. And I think the ministry, as well as the professionals, social service professionals, are equipped and to work with the persons who cause harm through counseling, through practical strategies, through challengings of their beliefs, to address and tackle the root cause that's perpetuating violence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Ong, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. That was Tabitha Ong, Director of the Adult Protective Service at the Social and Family Development Ministry.